Well, of course, coming up on Sunday, Ravens-Rams here in Baltimore. Our next guest is going to be on the call for ESPN Radio for the game. He is a former offensive lineman for I don't know, some team that used to I've totally blanked on who that team might have been that he played for. He's Max Starks, and he is with us here on GCR. Max, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
No problem, Glenn. In case you were wondering, yes, it is those Pittsburgh Steelers.
We don't use those words around here.
A different era.
It was a hell of an
Steelers.
era.
Yeah. We had the golden era for this rivalry in the early 2000s and played at it at a high level, and it was intense, right? It was back and forth. One dominates one year, the other dominates the next year. Then we split, and then all's happy in the universe. And it was a good time. It was a good, respectable rivalry. So looking forward to heading to Baltimore on Sunday and calling that Rams-Ravens game.
I hear you saying all those things, Max, but I warn you, like, old habits die hard. When people see you around here, they might just be inclined to boo the moment that you walk into the building. Look, we'll be nice about it. I promise. Well, I can't promise. I'm gonna hope there's gonna be like no throwing of anything. I just hope old habits do die hard around these parts.
Listen, everything can be can be mended with a good crab cake, though.
Hey,
That's what I learned.
That is one of the best things that we have to offer. There's no doubt about it. Max, it's funny you bring up defense, right? Because as we start with the Ravens, the defense has been phenomenal this season. It's been unbelievable, frankly, and I think better than even we expected it to be for this team this year. I wonder, as you look at what the Ravens are capable of, we know that this season uniquely has not been like the shootout style of football that maybe we have seen in other NFL seasons recently. Do you look at what the Ravens can do defensively, and again, not being like maybe a certain team in Pittsburgh offensively, and say that's the recipe? Like that, maybe it doesn't look as sexy as some of the offenses we've seen in recent years, but that might be the right recipe of defense that travels and offense that's capable.
Well, no, I think it can be good enough. I mean, you look at the AFC picture, and it is, it is a blender right now. It's throw all 16 teams in there and let's blend it up and let's see what we pour out on the other side. Teams are cannibalizing themselves. Good teams, are struggling to find wins. Bad teams, somehow win in the moment, and then you have everything in between that. And so I think that what the Ravens have, and you're looking at it, you're only giving up right around 15, a little better than 15 points a game. You're holding your opponents to under 275 total yards of defense, and I think that's good enough when you couple it with an offense that puts up well over 360 yards and, average 27 points a game. That's a recipe for success. Because at the end of the day, the only metric that matters, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is I end that game with one more point than my opponent.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what matters. Max Starks is with us here.
It is, but it's not college football, right? Even that is not good enough sometimes.
Who could you be referring to? Max, I when you say that, I guess what maybe might concern people here is the possibility that maybe there still is just like a little something missing cohesively offensively. That we know that this is a good offense, and maybe an offense that has at times been outstanding. We think, of course, of the Detroit game and the Seattle game. But in other times, like in that Chargers game, it kind of just went quiet. Are you worried at all about this offense without their best, pass catcher in Mark Andrews moving forward, of looking at the gauntlet that they have to face, really starting with the Rams on Sunday and through to the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I think, for every team, December reveals character. It doesn't build it, okay? So, how you divvy up the responsibility, right? Is it more of Zay Flowers? You don't have necessarily the marquee running back, but do you need that guy when you have Lamar back there, right? Because Gus Edwards has shown a propensity to be a quality running back for you and do the dirty work. And I think that's kind of where I look at it. This time of year, everybody's hurt, right? I mean, nobody can say, oh, we're toting everything that we had week one. And so that attrition takes over. But, another man's disappointment can be another man's, surprise. And I say that with meaning, can you see what other participants on your team have to offer? Could we see more from Odell Beckham Jr.? Or do you have, for Lamar, is it being more creative with some of the quarterback run stuff? The one thing I'll always wonder and always look to see is how healthy Lamar is. And right now he looks pretty darn healthy, than better than the last number of years that he's been around this time of year. And we're not even talking about Lamar being on the field. I think about this in my 3 years that I've worked, the Steelers as a sideline reporter.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen Lamar 2 times in 3 years.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's insane to think about that, but you have him this year, and like you said, you look at the record, and yes, there are some moments on there, right? You go back to the Browns game and how disappointing that one was to be a 2-point loss in that one. The Steelers game earlier, and then, of course, the Colts, right, to go into overtime and lose that one. But when you look at kind of where they've been, consistently outside of those couple of aberrations, you're talking about a consistent performer putting up points. And, yeah, the Chargers game was a bit tough, on that primetime night game. But I also say that even the best of teams have gone through that. I mean, let's look at who we consider the top team in the NFL. Is it the Philadelphia Eagles? Don't look that good, and it's only been a year removed for that squad. San Francisco looks good, but remember they had a 3-game losing streak earlier this year.
Yep.
And so nobody here really has any bugaboos. And you look at Dallas. Dallas lost to the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Right. And they haven't beaten anybody with a winning record. So I think when you look at that and being in that mix where the Ravens are and coming off of a bye where you can get some guys a little bit healthier, it came a little late, but I think it came at the right time when you're talking about making this push in December to be ready for what January is. And you have a solid run game, and you have a good passing attack. Not a great one, but you have a good one. And I think that's enough when you pair it with the defense, which I'm not going to call it the no-name defense, but when you look at the guys on there, it's not like, the early 2000s where you're like, oh, my God, we had Michael Boulware, we had, Terrell Suggs, it's not that type of name brand, but you do have a Roquan Smith and a Patrick Queen who literally look like they are competing with each other for the stat sheets. Like they have $20 bet on this game when they get into the locker room about whose stats were better. And they have a defensive line that's doing some things. Matabuke is doing a solid job.
Unbelievable.
And of course picking up Jadeveon Clowney and him looking like Jadeveon Clowney back when he was actually healthy with the Texans, not the one that showed up in Cleveland, in his last couple of years. So, I mean, I think it is good enough, and what they have to do is just continue to build upon that. And, yes, this gauntlet that you're about to go through in December is going to be tough. It's going to be a real revealer of the character, but that's what you want. If you want to be considered a quality team, you have to go through these games. And looking at Jacksonville, you might not even get a tough Jacksonville squad because C.J. Beathard might still be the starting quarterback by the time you see him. And then, of course, San Francisco, that's going to be a rough one. You're going out there to them prime time. That'll be a good barometer to see where you stand in the whole entire NFL picture. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't hurt you in the AFC picture. And then, of course, the Dolphins, that's going to be battling for number 1 seed, right? Who wants to be the home team at that point of the year? And, of course, finishing up with Pittsburgh, which is always a tough battle. So, I mean, I look at it, and, yeah, there's some challenges in there, but nothing that this team can't already weather through and also hope to continue to build on as a squad and allow that to reveal character.
Max Starks is with us. He'll, of course, be on the call for ESPN Radio Sunday for Ravens-Rams. One more about the Ravens, Max, and that's I admit I don't know how much you've been able to watch because, as you point out, you're doing Steelers games and other games. You got to be paying attention to everybody in the roles that you have. The one kind of maybe surprising issue this season has been the play of Ronnie Stanley, and he's been through a lot injury-wise, and just having him on the field was a good thing, but he's really struggled. Obviously, really struggled against Khalil Mack, and I get it. Khalil Mack's really good. Badly struggled against Myles Garrett, who again is otherworldly. You brought up something a second ago in both Lamar's health, but also thinking about the late bye, and are you inclined to say, hey, I'm not going to read too much into that because you get somebody a little bit of rest. This is someone, the player, the caliber of Ronnie Stanley that we're talking about. Maybe just a little bit of rest is exactly what he needs, given everything he's been through injury-wise, in order to get back to the level that we expect from him.
Yeah, I think we've been waiting for him to come back. And listen, I'm a Ronnie Stanley fan, watched him in Notre Dame, and loved, how he started out his career. And, yeah, injuries have been an issue over the last couple of years, but also being a guy who's gone through that and been in that position that Ronnie Stanley's been in, I know that you can benefit from it and you can overcome it. I remember having an 11-month layoff from neck surgery, literally breaking my neck in a previous season, then coming back the following year, almost a year to the date. And, there is that uncertainty. There is that fatigue because you have to get back into that mode. But I think rest really does a lot of guys good. And I think for Ronnie, he's still out there, he's battling, he's not complaining. But, you want to get just that break where you can kind of do the body assessment, allow yourself to heal your body because, listen, nobody is healthy. The healthiest you are is when you show up to training camp, right, in July. That's the last time you can say, you know what, I am at 100%. I'm at the best I'm going to feel.
No doubt.
Until next June. So, I know that, older guys are going to wear down a little bit more, but I think the week off will be really good. And like you said, you're getting a team in the Rams where they're starting to play really good, and they got some great mid-level guys. Now, you will have an Aaron Donald on a twist or two, but for the most part, this will be your get-right moment, I think, for Ronnie Stanley to really see where he's at and to see if he can actually hold the point and be a guy who can not be a liability for you to where you have to stack a tight end and kind of force things in his way or send Patrick Ricard off the edge as a chip blocker to help him in pass protection. I think this will be a good test for Ronnie Stanley, but I believe he can bounce back from it and he could be better because of it.
Post-Super Bowl, it feels like there has been a bit of a dismissal of the Rams, but it seems like, Max, so much of it has been about health, right? They didn't have Matt Stafford on the field a year ago, and then I saw this tweet from your ESPN colleague, Jeremy Fowler, who said the Rams in the last 3 games with Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua all in the lineup together are averaging 33 points per game, 412.7 yards per game, and they have a 3-0 record. How dangerous is a Rams team with the top end of their roster at the moment being fully healthy coming to Baltimore?
It is dangerous because, listen, this will be my 3rd time seeing the Rams this season. And I also watched that dreadful Brett Rippon game in Green Bay. So I feel like I deserve like a Purple Heart for that game because that was not NFL football.
Combat pay, right?
I don't even know if that was FCS football. But, looking at how they are, Puka Nacua as a rookie receiver, he is just absolutely nuts. And what they ask him to do is he is the move guy. He's the motion guy. He's also the safety dig-out guy. So he's not just the guy that sits out there, hey, give me an ISO and I'm going to run a streak route and I'm just going to beat you. No, this is the guy that's catching the shallow crosser across the middle in traffic, making combat catches, and then for some reason does a spin move and he's out and a 5-yard gain becomes a 25-yard gain. Like, it's very uncanny. So he's the guy that you're going to have to watch and that you're going to have to keep, your top flight guys on him. And if you're going to go zone, you need to make sure the brackets are secure, that they're not leaking or nobody's switching off into zone. And then when you're doing that, Cooper Kupp is now a problem. Cooper Kupp becomes the guy who he has been over the years when you're talking about an NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP type. It's one of those things. I look at Cooper, and Cooper is he's an integral part, and he is a safety blanket for Matthew Stafford. But at the same time, like, a lot of their schematics and their offensive line, like, you can get to them, but I think teams kind of take the pedal off, off of the gas when you're going to blitz him because Matt Stafford still is susceptible to the blitz. He's old. You hit him frequently, you hit him often, and you don't get scared about dropping into zones, and you still keep that guy in the blitz game. If I said Roquan Smith or Patrick Queen at him, 4 or 5 times in the first quarter, and they hit him half of the time, he's going to remember that for the next 3 quarters. And even if you're not going to send him, that's the message you want to send because he is a guy who does get susceptible. He does hear the ghost. He does feel the footsteps at times. And so if you can give some of those motions and take away really that middle of the field with dropping in some more Tampa 2 stuff. So, it's a spot drop. is some of the double mug stuff that the Ravens like to do, and drop one of those guys into the middle of the field where you think it's a quick crosser or a two-step slant, and then boom, you got your linebackers there. You have a safety sitting in that hole and taking away the seam in the curl flat area. Those are the things that I think when you look at the Ravens, they have the capability to do it, but it's also having the stomach to go through doing that, because there is a nervousness, right, when you see two really good receivers out there. And like you said, Kyron Williams is running the ball really well. But I still don't think this offensive line is exceptional that's in front of Matt Stafford. So I think there is some holes that they can take advantage of.
All right, 2 quick hitters before I let you go. The first, who to you is the team to beat in the AFC, Max?
Right now, I'd say it's Baltimore still.
Okay.
Because Miami, I don't know if I trust them above the Mason-Dixon line, and they haven't shown me enough to be able to just, oh, my gosh, I got to do that. I know where their standing is. And also Kansas City. Kansas City has some offensive problems they got to figure out. So I would say when you're talking about consistent, most complete team-wise right now, it is the Baltimore Ravens.
And then Kenny Pickett, the reports are that he could be back for the regular season finale against the Ravens, but I think the question is, can the Steelers keep things interesting enough to make that game matter for them if he could come back?
Well, I think, you look at the stretch and the games that we have coming up, and if Mr. Trubisky's going to be at the helm, for 4, and assuming the 5th one's going to be there against the Ravens, you have to be able to go 2-2 a starter. That's the only way I think, because I think the rest of this league cannibalizes, and with everybody being so close together in that wild card and in the hunt range. I mean, when you think about it, only one team's been statistically ruled out of the playoffs, out of the entire NFL. So we still have 31 viable teams that are still in the hunt for the playoffs. So I think if you're the Steelers and you're sitting at that 5 seed, you have to be able to split over the next 4 weeks.
From a betting standpoint, we also want to know tonight, is there a chance that this game, any chance at all that they finish more than 30 points between these two teams?
No, I'm going under.
Yeah,
we
are together.
If I were a betting man, but I'm not betting. I can tell you this.
I get it.
I don't trust the New England Patriots. I don't know how much longer Bill Belichick's going to be the head coach there.
At MaxStark78 on Twitter is how you follow him. Again, Sunday for Ravens-Rams on ESPN Radio. Max, really enjoyed this, man, despite the fact that you have Pittsburgh Steeler in your blood. Really enjoyed this. Appreciate you taking the time for us, and look forward to seeing you in town on Sunday.
It's always good as long as it's not Steeler-Ravens week,